Welcome to The Recovering Perfectionist, where you'll learn all the hacks you need to get started and finished on your business or project. You'll connect with successful entrepreneurs who are in perfectionist rehab, unapologetically experimenting and balancing life, business, family, and me time. I'm your host and Chief Recovering Perfectionist, Claire Barton. Hey everyone, Claire from The Recovering Perfectionist here. Today on the show, I have Mary Houston, who got up incredibly early to chat with me on the podcast. She lives in the UK and I'm obviously in Australia. So we had a chat about all things perfectionism and how it can actually stop so many things in your life. So Mary and I have very, very, very similar views on perfectionism, obviously, and it was really interesting getting her on the show and hearing a little bit about what she does and how she helps women overcome it. So I really hope you enjoy the episode, and I will look forward to hearing your replies. Okay. Hi everyone, it's Claire from The Recovering Perfectionist, and I'm here with Mary Houston, who is the creator of Mind Your Own Business, all the way from Oxford in the UK. So thanks for getting up so early in the morning to have a chat with me, Mary.
Oh, so glad to be here with you, Claire. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's fine. The sun will come up soon.
Eventually.
Yeah.
For everyone listening at home, I'm sitting in Brisbane, Australia, and we were just laughing about how I've got my air conditioner trying to cool the room down to 18 degrees, and Mary's got her heating on trying to warm it up to 20. So we are seriously on opposite ends of the globe, but we work in a lot of similar spaces, and we move in a lot of similar groups from what I can work out, and I've been following your journey for a little while. So Mary, I know you from one of the Facebook groups that we're both in, and one of my first memories of you was a beautiful post that you did sort of asking for some support, and there were some changes going on in your business and all of that sort of thing, and I really connected with that. It was really vulnerable and really beautiful and really honest and really connective, and the best thing about that was you got so many responses of people saying, oh my gosh, here you go, like this is, giving you support and giving you love. And it was kind of, I was just watching from the outside going, wow, it was just amazing to see all of these incredible people kind of coming out and you being incredibly brave and vulnerable for doing all of that sort of thing. So that was sort of one of my first interactions that I think I had with you. And since then I've followed you. I know. Well, no, it was good. It was excellent. It was really, really authentic. I know it's a totally overused word, but it was really real, and I really like it. So here we are today. So when I contacted you a few weeks ago to say, I can't remember what happened. We'd interacted, we'd done a few things online, and I was like, right, we have to talk. I need you on the podcast. And then we've decided to talk about the thing that you do, which is called Mind Your Own Business. So usually I don't talk about what we're going to talk about until you've articulated who you are and what you do, but it's kind of the same thing. So I'm going to hand over to you to tell us a bit more about you and your business and all the things, Mary Houston.
Cool. Well, it's funny because that post, when I think back to that post, so many people still talk about it and reference it, or or search for it and read it. And I think that really was it was such a huge turning point in my online presence, because I was just hit with this overwhelming sense that so many women are afraid to speak their mind and are afraid to be vulnerable. I was so shocked. I don't have a problem with speaking my mind at all, or telling my story, or telling it like it is. It was just, for me, it was just a bad day, and I was just writing about a bad day. Yeah. But there were so many women who were like, I was so inspired by how brave you were, and it really triggered me into this whole cycle of events that got me thinking about, why are women so afraid to speak up? Why do so many of us hold ourselves back? Why do we not speak our truth? Why do we find visibility and authenticity so difficult? And so from there, and from a other kind of series of crazy events, this whole idea of Mind Your Own Business was born. And I was listening to one of your podcasts and hearing about your journey of how Recovering Perfectionist came, into being. And it was such a similar kind of fermentation, when you had that idea and you sit with it a little bit, and but you just knew that it was something that had a really clear message in it. And for me, so many people go, mind your own business, what? Because most people will go mind your own business when it's like you're being nosy, you know, or kind of keep out of my business.
Keep out of my business, yeah.
Yeah, and in some ways it is exactly that, but it's a bit of a play on terms, because for me, the fundamental thing that I find with all my clients, whatever they come to me for, the one thing they all have in common is this obsession with worrying about what other people think.
Keeping up,
It's just keeping up with appearances, doing things because of other people instead of because of how they feel, worrying about other people's opinions. And it's this whole idea that we spend our lives living in other people's business, catering to other people, ignoring how we feel, instead of actually minding our own business and focusing on our lives and getting ourselves straight first, and being in a place of joy and freedom and releasing all that negative emotions, you know. So it was kind of born from there. And it also has a little bit of play on words as well with the whole mind your own business, because I work with so many entrepreneurs, because this is it's such a big thing for entrepreneurs. And as you know, with recovering perfectionist, you know, it really has a bit of an overlap with imposter syndrome, recovering perfectionist, self-sabotage, you know, because those are all of the reasons, you know, the symptoms of being in other people's business, you know. So that's why. So I've kind of created this program, for want of a better word, I guess it's a bit like you. I mean, the recovering perfectionist, it is your theme, it is your model. I don't know. It's the thing that, you know, when you find your purpose, because you know it's the thing that you just want to talk about.
It fits.
All the time.
Exactly.
It just fits. It just feels right. And for me, it was the thing that wouldn't let me go. It was like, no, you need to open this conversation. People need to be talking about this, you know. So, and so out of it, I've created little programs off of it that work around coaching people around the idea of, can you get out of other people's business and focus on your own life? Because that is the fast track to emotional healing from my experience. So that's kind of what I do, and how I ended up there. Really, for me, the tipping point was when I was in the throes of trying to get over my marriage breakup. Everyone almost knows my story and knows that, you know, my marriage went tits up a few years ago, and that's how I ended up back in the UK, because I was in Perth for nearly 7 years.
Right.
And I just couldn't let it go. I just couldn't get past, find my own path to healing. I was a total mess. My son was a total mess because I was a total mess, you know. And I know on your call with Anna Siebert, you were talking so much about this idea of that when we're not present as parents, our children are so dysregulated, you know. And it's so true. And that what was happening for me. And then I had this light bulb moment, which was, what he chooses to do is none of my business. And it was like suddenly the world just lifted off my shoulders. You know, it was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that. Like, really? It's like, oh
yeah, I've got my own stuff. Yeah.
That feels really good, you know? And it was like, and then I just started talking to more people about it and realizing so many people do that.
Yeah.
We expend so much energy on this.
I had a conversation, I don't know how old I would have been, maybe in my early teens or pre-teen or something, with my auntie, my mum's sister. And she was a very, is still a very strong, gosh, I don't even know how I would describe her. She's awesome entrepreneur. She's always been in business. She's one of those people who really genuinely doesn't give a shit about what anyone thinks of her, and she never has. Like, she just doesn't care. Like, she'll try and talk her way out of a parking ticket by telling the police officer off for something, and she'll, you know, she's just that sort of person. She's completely nuts. But I remember her saying to me once, what she said, you know, you just think about this. Whenever someone has a go at you about such and such, you think of this. What you think of me is none of my business.
Yes.
And that's something that's really stuck with me. It's easier said than done, and I'm definitely haven't lived by that throughout most of my teens and 20s. Well, maybe in my teens, but certainly not in my 20s. this whole thing about, you know, what you think of me is none of my business. Like, if you don't like it, don't tell me. Just go away. Like, I don't need that stuff. And I did Trish Everett's Sweet Talk course with my husband about this time last year, actually, early 2016. And she talks a lot about personal responsibility. In fact, I spoke to her on the podcast recently about personal responsibility, because it was a real kind of eye-opener for me. You know, you do these communication and relationship courses and you expect to be told about the open body language and the open-ended questions and positive communication, all that sort of thing. But it was totally not that. It was a bit, you know, that on steroids times 5 billion. It was just amazing. But one of the biggest things I got out of it was the module on personal responsibility. And 50% of personal responsibility is obviously looking after your own shit, owning your own stuff, owning your own hang-ups, owning your own behaviors, owning your own needs, owning your own strengths, and all of that sort of thing, which is probably the easier part of the 50%. The other 50% is not owning everyone else's stuff. Yes. So if you're standing in your own truth, like, you know, when we talk about relationships, if you're standing in your own truth and you really genuinely need to speak up about something that you're not happy with, or a need that's not being met, or a behavior that does not fit with your values or whatever, and you bring it up, and then your partner or the other person who you're talking to gets the shits and doesn't talk to you for 2 days, or gets angry and starts slamming doors or whatever, that's their thing. You know, we sort of had this thing where we would have an argument, and whoever responded, the other one would be all like, oh, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to do this. And if you're going to slam doors, I'm going to slam doors. If you're not going to talk to me, I'm not going to talk to you. And it was just ridiculous. It was just such a negative spiral. But once we both did this course at the same time, we both owned our own stuff to go, actually, this is really important to me, and I'm going to say something. I'm going to say it kindly and in a good timing and all that sort of thing. But I'm not going to be responsible for your response. That's your gig. You don't want to talk to me for 2 days? That's cool. I'm going to go over here and do my own thing, because
absolutely.
And it's a practice thing, but it's totally exactly what you were saying. It's when you stop owning everyone else's stuff and their responses to your stuff. Game changer, right?
Just absolute life changer. And it's funny, you know, when you say it's almost easier to own your own stuff rather than get out of everybody else's stuff. But what I find is, in the process that I take women through, is when we actually do own our own stuff, the other stuff doesn't matter anyway. You suddenly arrive at a place where you're like, oh, I didn't even notice that that's the way you were responding.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. You just do whatever you want to do. Because the hardest thing I've had for women anyway, the hardest thing for women is to actually just be themselves, and to actually be brave enough to own their own truth, because there are so many of us that aren't doing that. You know, we're not living our purpose, we're not owning our truth, and it comes back to this idea, you know, our conversation opener about coming to this place where we can be vulnerable, because there are so many people that are afraid to do that because of the fear of being judged, or what other people will think or say, or the knock-on effect, you know. So so once you arrive at that place, I've got a beautiful client at the moment, and she's really been working hard on this, on owning her stuff and owning her story, and she's going through a really difficult time in a relational point of view with the people around her, and she kind of wanted to sort the relational stuff out first. And I was like, I think we should just start with you. Let's start with you. And she's like, yeah, but the reason I feel like this is because of everybody else. It's like, that's where everybody is sitting. It's like, once you can stop needing to blame everybody else, once you can stop needing to change everybody else, that is the game changer. But we spend our lives trying to change everyone around us, trying to change our circumstances. I did a live stream about this yesterday, and it was like, I want everybody to write a list of how many people are you waiting to change in your life, and how many circumstances are you waiting to change in your life before you take action. You know, and people were like, oh gosh.
I filled up a notebook.
Okay, quite a few, and I'm guilty of that too. But that's how we live our life. But when you own your own stuff, when you mind your own business, and you get out of everybody else's sphere, and you can go, actually, I don't need anything to change. I just need to get on with my own stuff and take that action. And that's a huge procrastinator for women in business as well.
Yeah.
Huge trait of the perfectionist, you know, kind of constantly wanting everything to be right and circumstances to be right. And, you know, so yeah, it's a huge thing.
I think it's a really interesting thing, and it's obviously for anyone who's ever listened to an episode or heard me talk about anything will probably know that this is where I sort of stand on it. And this is, you know, as you said, this is why I started the Recovering Perfectionist, and why pretty much everything that I do is kind of through the filter of the Recovering Perfectionist, because I speak to so many people. I used to speak to so many people in the past who are friends or family who have these amazing ideas and these beautiful gifts that they can be bringing the world, and these beautiful things that would serve other people as well as serve them. And they say, I'm going to do this. And you're like, that sounds awesome. What can I do to help? Or why don't you try this? Or you could start here or whatever. And then 6 months later or a year later or 2 years later or 5 years later, it's like, hey, how'd you go with that thing? And they're like, oh, no, I was never going to do it. It was just an idea. And I'm like, what? But that was like, I wanted that thing. Why can't you do that? But this happened all the time. Or, you know, even now I talk to friends who have seen my business journey, and they're like, oh, you know, it's getting more tempting. And I'm like, it's really not that hard. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Like, the whole idea is to just get started and to experiment and to try something. But, you know, what I try and do is kind of give people a bit of a framework and a bit of a plan and a systems and ways to make it feel easier, so they've got the confidence to actually do it and that sort of thing. But the whole thing, I guess, about, you know, when you're starting a business is, like you said, it's hard enough to start in the first place if you're not sure exactly where you're going, but that's part of the process. Like, no one knows where they're going when they first start. But then the second wave of that kind of comparisonitis comes when you're in there, especially if you're doing like an online business. For a lot of people, that's a pretty new world. And it's a, you know, you sort of think you know online business, and then you start an online business and you're like, shit, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't even know that like email marketing was a thing. I didn't know, you know, like there's so much that you don't know what you don't know, sort of thing. So then that second wave comes when you start seeing people who are doing something similar or the same as you, and how far ahead they might seem in their business journey, or how much more finesse their branding is, or how much content they're putting out and that sort of thing. And it gets really overwhelming, and you think, oh, stuff it, I haven't got time to do that. They're doing it, I might as well not bother. And I certainly went through that 1,000 times. I still go through that with the comparisonitis, where it does get a bit paralyzing, because you think, oh, what's the point? Why, like, people can go and get this thing. Sorry, my dog's, you probably hear my dog breathing. He's literally just here for a pat and being a pest. Recovering Perfectionist, my dog's on my podcast. This is George, everybody. Hello, George.
Hello, George.
So when I sort of first started, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, I've got a great idea, and then I'd start doing things, and then like I felt like every time I did that, the next day someone would be online going, hey, look at this new product. I'm like, that's my thing. Oh, stuff it, I'm not going to do it anymore because someone's already doing it
so many times.
And that's the thing. And then I've had so many conversations about this with coaches and other people kind of in my circle, and they're like, yeah, but they do it differently. Even if it's a similar kind of program or a similar offering, there's a reason why people would or wouldn't buy from you or someone else. Like, there's people who do the same thing, obviously, but if they have more of a connection with you and they get your style and your messaging and all that other sort of subliminal stuff, that's kind of where it comes from. Like, there's enough people to go around that you don't really have to worry about whether you're better or worse than anyone. You just do what you do, because someone always needs the thing that you've got, or that you're teaching or supporting in, or whatever. There's always someone who connects better with me than they do with the next person who does what I do. It's taken a long time to get to the point of being okay with that, and I'm still not 100% okay. There's still moments that I see people pop up and I'm like, grr, that was my thing. I was supposed to do that, and I've either not got my shit together, or I've forgotten to send a message, or I've, you know, whatever. And, you know, you've got to keep picking yourself up and that sort of thing. But, you know, it is in waves, and it's always going to be there. So the sooner you kind of move past that and get okay with not having to compare yourself. So in that sense, Mary, have you got any kind of tips and tricks or activities that people can do if they're kind of stuck in a moment? Say if anyone's listening right now and they're in that bit of a funk because they're comparing to someone else who's in the same field or doing a similar sort of service or product than they are. Have you got any kind of quick fixes, or is it all a bit of a process?
It's kind of yes and no is the answer. It's so funny because we talked about, like, for the whole month of March, I've been doing this free masterclass training series for people, like a series of webinars, and two of them, one was on imposter syndrome, one was on self-sabotage, which is so exactly what you're talking about. We were talking about comparisonitis, what happens when, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about that journey, because the thing that happens is we think we just need to get over it. We need to reach a point where we can get over it, and then we can just free ourselves and get on with our business. But the thing is that every time that we hit a new glass ceiling, the goalposts move, and we discover a whole new level of comparisonitis.
New level, new devil. New level, same devil.
I was playing here and I was okay with that, but now I'm playing in this sandpit, and they have way more money than me, and they're using Ontraport and really big professional things like that, and and so you just kind of hit a whole new level, and it comes at you again. So so I say to people two things. Yes, I do have some really quick things that help you when you're in that space, but the best thing that you can do is, because underlying all of that, it comes back to what we were talking about at the start, is when you know your worth and you are absolutely 100% owning that, none of that stuff matters, and that is the big thing for women. Is so many women struggle with being okay with their worth. I've taken clients through coaching and they've cleared up all their shit in every corner of their life, but get them to still then look me in the eye and say, I'm worth it. And they start sweating, it's like, we really have, but when you can own that and be totally in that place, that is where that freedom from comparisonitis comes. That's, in my experience, that is the only permanent cure, is to just 100% know that you are divinely loved, you are divinely perfect, that you are your own essence of energy, and there is no one like you in the world. And that's the reason why you're here doing this, because somebody else can talk about the recovering perfectionist, but they won't have your story, they won't have your energy, they won't have your radiance, they won't have what you have, and it doesn't matter. And what you have, your energy is going to resonate with a whole different kind of people than somebody else's will, and I think we place so much on the doing and not enough on the being who we are, and that leads to that self-destructive cycle anyway. But so I love acronyms. That's when I was studying, as I'm a physiotherapist. My first job was a physiotherapist. So when I was studying, and I hate science, how I ended up as a medical professional, I have no idea. But when I was studying, I used to use acronyms a lot to try and remember stuff. I just couldn't remember things. So one of the things that we came up with in the masterclass, and women love these. So the first one was bold steps for action. So bold standing for be brave, be open, love yourself, and do something daring. And those 4 steps alone, whenever you get into that sense of I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud, somebody is better than me, you get into that cycle of negative thinking, to just stop and think, right, be brave. Of course I'm brave. I know I can do this. Reach out, call a girlfriend, ask for some moral support, get somebody to lift you up and help you be brave. Be open, share. Not only, so many people think openness comes because we have to be more open, but actually women have a real issue with receiving.
Yes.
So it's actually being open to receive. So receive that support back, receive those compliments back, let people lift you up and help you. This isn't a one-man band. So many of us on our entrepreneurial journey think that as a solopreneur, you have to do it solo. You have to do everything by yourself, and it's just impossible. So love yourself. You cannot get rid of this cycle unless you love yourself, because you will just keep attacking yourself the whole time and comparing, shaming and comparing yourself to other people. Do something daring. Take an action step, take a baby action step, whether it's do that post on Facebook like I did 9 months ago, which was, this is where I'm at, and I'm just being brave and daring enough and open enough to just say, here I am. Or whether it's to make a video but not post it yet, or but just to do something daring. So the first one is my bold action steps, and then the other one is my bare action steps, which is more when you really get into that cycle of complete shutdown, complete freeze. So breathe. First one, breathe, breathe, align yourself to your center, align your energy, get some body treatment, do a meditation, get out of your head, get into your body and align yourself where you are. Allow that aligning to actually reveal your true self, your true nature. Connect with who you are and connect with that inner voice and that inner wisdom, and then embody that. So embody that whisper that you're hearing. And then when you go through that stage, it's such a grounding process, and almost getting into that bareness of who you are, taking steps then takes you into that, okay, now that I have done that, I've breathed, I've aligned, I've revealed, I've embodied, I'm here. Oh, now I can take that bold action step. So those are like really quick, simple steps that you can take when you get into this cycle.
Love it. Amazing. I will definitely put links in the show notes, because I would love to read some more about that and to have a bit of a reminder about bare and bold. I absolutely love that.
I've got little pictures which I can send you.
Oh yeah, good.
People were like, oh, can I have that for like my phone or something?
That's what I was thinking. It'd be a nice screensaver or something. Just as a little reminder.
Yeah, that's the thing, it's there. So
really interesting. Quick total anecdote around what you were just saying around bare. I noticed you mentioned when you're aligning that you might do some body work, or you might sort of tap into your physicalness. In a past life, I was also a remedial massage therapist and a baby massage instructor, amongst other things. But I loved giving massage, and I also still to this day obviously love getting massage. And I always find when I'm in having a massage, like that's obviously a really vulnerable place to be in. And I know as a massage therapist, when people are, almost naked, face down with their face in a little hole, it's a very vulnerable place to be. And with vulnerability comes extreme emotion, because I guess you're so open to everything, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. Like I've had so many people who've just burst into tears and cried for the entire massage, or cried at the end, or want to give me a hug at the end, or like it's a really emotional kind of process to go through. And I know when I'm getting a massage, I do feel exactly what you've just said. Like you get into your breathing because you're either in pain or you're just so relaxed, but you're also aligned because you're like, you can feel every part of your body when someone's, massaging it. And what was R? Reveal. So I know when I'm face down in a massage, I'm always really relaxed. In fact, the last time I almost fell asleep for the first time ever, and I get a lot of massages and I've never fallen asleep, but I'm pretty sure I might have, had a couple of micro sleeps there. But anyway, but I always, like, when I'm kind of in that space, I wish I had a notepad on my armrest, because I come up with the most incredible ideas. I feel like it's like there's this enlightening thing that happens, and now that you've put some words to it, that's exactly what it is, because I'm breathing, I'm aligned, I'm revealing stuff because I'm in a vulnerable state and a relaxed state, and I'm not thinking about anything else. It's like when you're falling asleep, I suppose, and all those, your brain is like, hello, what about this? What about this? But it's like that. And then embodying it, I'll go usually and sit in the car, or I usually do it on my nothing day. I have a nothing day once a month, and then I go to a cafe and I buy myself coffee, and then I sit down and I write down all of my ideas, and because I just feel like there's such clarity. So I think you've completely hit the nail on the head with your bare and bold things. That's really struck a chord with me. So
and I think a lot of you're welcome. And so when it kind of ties back to receiving, in that because women are so bad at receiving, we can't we can't get those downloads. We can't hear that inspiration, that soul whisper, that divine connection, our intuition, whatever you want to call it. But we can't hear that unless we're in receiving mode. And having a massage is one of the things that puts you in receiving mode.
Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah.
but the more, you know, the more that women are pushing and hustling with their business because they think they need to work harder and work faster and do more, the more their self-care drops off.
Yep.
And so the more that we are not in receiving mode. And so then, you know, they come to me and they're like, I don't understand why nothing's shifting. I don't understand why nothing is working. It's like, well, what are you doing for yourself? What do you mean? I'm doing all this stuff and I'm doing all this training. I'm doing all these courses. And I'm like, what are you doing?
When do you switch off?
When was the last time that you went for a walk or you were in nature or you had a massage? I don't have time for that stuff. Okay, just breathe.
It's like
just
that
breathe.
saying that says, if you don't have 10 minutes to meditate, if you don't have time to meditate for 10 minutes, you should meditate for 30 minutes.
You should be doing it, yeah.
Or something like that. It's so true, isn't it? The busier you are, the more you need to make time to do stuff to not be busy. Yeah.
And I don't think women realize, I don't think anybody realizes that actually is that you need to be in a receiving state to receive. You know, to receive anything, to receive abundance, to receive inspiration, to receive love.
Ideas,
you know, ideas. You know, if you're in a bad mood, you can't feel the love your husband is giving you because you're completely blocked off from it. You know? So that happens in our life. If we are blocked off to money, we're gonna still be in a financial struggle. You know, if we are blocked off to ourselves, we're not going to get those downloads. And you know, and it is so linked to our purpose and why so many women struggle with their business, because if you're not on purpose, if you're not living that essence of you that's flowing from you because you can't hear it, because you're not in receiving mode, then your business is just going to be something you do.
Right.
And we both know that the best, most successful businesses are run by women that own their purpose. You know, you can spot them a mile off, the women that are in their story and they are in their purpose and they are in their power. You can see them coming, and they're the women that, or people that make you go, oh, I want to listen.
I want what she's having.
I really want to listen to you. Yeah, and it's because they're in their purpose. They know how to get in receiving mode. So,
interesting. Now, we've given comparisonitis a bit of a bad name. Is there is there anything good about comparisonitis? Is there a positive side of comparing or knowing what's going on, or is it all doom and gloom?
Oh no, I compare myself all the time to people from the point of view is that I do it. I'm like, oh man, how they reading my thoughts? That was my thing. And I'll do a trademark search, or I'll go, how did somebody think of that before me? Like, it's funny, like the whole bear thing. When I first went online with my business about 2.5 years ago, I created my whole business around this theme of being bare and being vulnerable and being open. And I had like it's the only time in my life I've ever written a business plan, and I had it all laid out. And then I just kind of caught wind of one of my master coaches who had mentioned Bear in something. So then I kind of looked it up and I saw that she had a program which was Bear Coaches. And I was like, oh. So I thought, I'll just check with her. And I emailed her and I said, you know, I'm so excited. I'm about to launch this new business and it's all to do with being Bear. I noticed you kind of had a program. I just wanted to make sure you're okay with that. She's like, no, actually, Mary, I've trademarked the word Bear. Like, it's a whole big thing that I'm launching in 2017. I'm like, oh, okay then, right. And I've never written
there goes that thing
since. So, you know, and so I compare myself all the time to people because I get so much inspiration from seeing how they do things and seeing their ideas and seeing how they work it. But I know, because of the whole minding your own business thing, I know where my boundary is and I know where to stop, and I know I can feel when my body and my ego is taking over, when that voice changes from inspiration to fear and to, like, when you start to like get protective and secretive and you want to hold on to things, you know that the ego is taken over, and that's when comparisonitis gets dangerous. That's when you go into that yucky place. But otherwise, you compare all the time. You share and compare all the time. We do it as colleagues. We bounce ideas and we open ourselves out. And I think it's a brilliant way to learn and to develop. Yeah. But the key is knowing where your boundary is. And if you can compare from a place of love, it is such a brilliant way to open yourself up and expand. But if you compare from a place of fear and lack, that's
yucky.
That's really the yucky energy that you get into, because you just end up feeling crap about yourself.
I totally agree. I did a blog on this probably a year ago, or almost a year ago, where I felt like I was observing the process by this stage, because I had that that kind of feeling of, hey, that was my idea, or I was about to do that, or that was my thing, or how dare you, like I'm getting really kind of cranky about it, and then throwing everything in the air, going and drinking a glass of wine, and not doing anything in my business for the rest of the day because I just had the shits about it for some reason, right? But then what I realized was happening, and it took probably 3 or 4 times, maybe 4 or 5 times, to kind of, sorry, my dog is so excited, to sort of realize what was happening was that after I got over that initial having a little tanty and throwing my toys out of the cot, it made me do 2 things. The first one was I had to evaluate whether that thing was actually really important to me, or whether it was something that was just on my to-do list. And seeing someone else do something similar to something you had in mind or were doing really makes you dig deep to go, does this really matter to me, and am I going to pursue it? Or does it not really matter to me, and I was just like, I procrastinated it and I didn't get it done, and therefore it's something that wasn't really a good fit in the first place? And if the answer is yes, this is really meaningful, this is really important to me, and this is work that I have to do regardless of what the outcome is, then that's the first thing, right? So what I was doing was, the first couple, I think I just went, oh, stuff it, I'm not going to do it anymore, someone else is doing that, I'll move on to my next project. And then probably by the 3rd or 4th time, I was like, no, I really want to do this, like I've gone through this already, I've already picked, this is my thing, this is the thing that's really important, this is the thing that I know is going to work, and it's aligned to me, and it's aligned to my business, and all of that sort of thing. But then what it made me do was innovate. It made me think of, how can I do it so that it doesn't look like I've copied them, but so that it's still my original work and it's still my original idea. And it made me, kind of chop and change things, or add things and take things off, or deliver it in a different way that actually ended up being shit hot product. And it was amazing because it made me very sure that that's what I wanted to do, and B, made it better than it would have been originally anyway. So I do think in some cases there's a really great outcome after comparisonitis. Comparison, and let's call it comparisinosis. I don't know.
I call it. Just last week I was talking about it, and when you said comparisonitis, I was like, oh, she copied me. See, like comparisonitis, because we were talking about this last week. But it's funny because when I had this conversation with my master coach, she actually said to me, but Mary, you just had an idea similar to me. I've been a master coach for 10 years. You're just out of the blocks and you're having this great idea. Go you. Oh, that's a really interesting way to look at it. But that's one of the reasons why I love Wayne Dyer's work so much, because he is the absolute master of doing that. If you listen to his talks, all he does is talk about other people. He's constantly taking stuff that he has read and he just repackages it in a way that he knows his audience are listening to him for. And he openly talked about this. He was just like, what I'm doing is constantly a stream of just other people's work. I'm just recycling it and I'm reteaching it, because that person may not have heard it from that particular teacher. They needed it to come from me in my voice, in my language, in my body, in my tones, so that I could hear it. And I was like, oh man, that's brilliant. Because I think so many times we can go on a course or we'll go to a webinar and we hear something brilliant that you really want to take to your tribe, but then everybody gets all protective about it and has stakes ownership on it. And I also remember, you may well know of her, like being a body worker, because she's an American lady, of Annette Noontil, and she wrote the book The Body is the Barometer of the Soul, which is all about how our body symptoms reflect what our emotional and energetic symptom is. And I always remember reading her say about her books are so inexpensive, she never copyrighted or trademarked anything, and she always said information is for sharing. Like nobody owns anything, you know. It is just because it's only when you come from a place of lack that you worry that something can be taken away from you. It's only when we're worried about losing something that more stuff isn't going to come that we need to hold on to stuff. But if I was talking to somebody the other day, and she does these amazing paintings, and she's got so many of them, like nearly hundreds of them. She's just started shredding them or giving them away, and they're amazing. And somebody said to her, how can you do that? How can you throw your work away? And she's like, but I'm an infinite source of these paintings. Where this came from, thousands more are going to come from, and I don't have the storage space. And I was like, oh my God, that's just so true. It's only when we're frightened that something is going to run out, money, inspiration, love, whatever, that we start to hold on to it. But if we really believe in our divine, infinite beingness, then I know our brilliant ideas are going to keep flowing and flowing and flowing.
Yeah, that's it. And the only way to really make space for those is to let the current ones go and keep cycling through.
Living. Yeah, absolutely.
Mary, you're an absolute breath of fresh air. I've loved chatting with you, and we could chat all day, but your little boy's about to wake up and my dog needs to go outside, so we might
time for the boys.
Oh man, it was just awesome. I've absolutely loved this chat and the direction that it went, and all that beautiful affirmation. I really feel beautiful about this speech, about this chat, and I'm sure that everyone who's listening will feel the same. So how can people get in touch with you and learn more about you and your beautiful work?
Well, you can follow me on Facebook. I've just started a new Facebook group, which is called Women of Influence, which is for women who absolutely want to stop being controlled by other people's thinking and thoughts and step into their own power and start to be the change and do what they want to do. So you can come and join us there. You can come and find me on my website, or come and join one of my programs.
Yay! Awesome. Brilliant. We'll have it all in the show notes as well, obviously, and I can't wait to see what else you do and all of the beautiful things that you're going to bring into the world in the future. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. I think we covered everything from dogs to, how do we heal, how do we heal the world.
Beautiful. So, look forward to hearing more soon.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Cheers,
soon.
Mary.
Thanks
you.
so much.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. And that is absolutely it, my lovely. So I hope you've really enjoyed the episode. It was great fun recording that one, as it is with all of them. If you'd like to connect, I'd love to stay in touch with you. I have a beautiful Facebook group community at bit.ly/The Recovering Perfectionist Crew with all capital T, R, P and C. I have a massive goal this year to get 50,000 downloads on my podcast, and I've got a YouTube show as well. So I'd love for you to help me out if you can by either subscribing to the podcast on iTunes. So if you want to go over and do that now, that would be awesome. If you have a couple of favourite episodes, or if there's one favourite episode that you've really enjoyed, I would love you to share that with anyone who you think would get as much out of it as you have as well. And while you're in iTunes, if you can jump in and give it a review, that would be amazing. iTunes definitely helps out podcasts that have got some good ratings and reviews and some really interactive listeners. So I would really appreciate your help with getting to my goal of 50,000 in 2017. The show is also available over on YouTube. The links are always in the show notes, so you can head over there. So it's The Recovering Perfectionist on YouTube. There's a channel for that as well. So jump in and leave your comments. You can watch all of the episodes in video. So if you want to see what we look like and our crazy hand gestures and facial expressions and all of that sort of thing, absolutely jump in. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel show as well, and then you'll be kept up to date when there's some new episodes that come in there. So yeah, love your support. And if you want to shoot me an email, it's hello@clairebarton.com.au. Always happy to receive your emails and open up a conversation. All right, big love. I'll chat with you soon. Bye.